E adesso abbiamo le medaglie. Noi abbiamo da ascoltare 3 medaglie d'argento in ex aequo e una medaglia d'oro. A questo punto ai colleghi che hanno vinto le medaglie c'è anche uno spazio di racconto diretto del loro progetto. Quindi funzionerà come abbiamo fatto fino adesso, io leggo la motivazione, diamo le medaglie e poi ascoltiamo se quel punto di vista di cui parlava Riccardo corrisponde. La prima medaglia d'argento ex aequo è per un edificio per assemblaggio Ford, qui siamo a Richmond in California, negli Stati Uniti d'America. Mercy Wong e Don Logan Architects sono i progettisti. L'ex Ford Assembly Building, progettato nel 1931 da Albert Kahn ed Henry Ford, era stato pesantemente danneggiato dal terremoto del 1989 e dal successivo abbandono. Con questo restauro il Ford Assembly Building riqualifica il waterfront della baia con l'incisività iconica della fabbrica di luce, che stabilisce un suggestivo dialogo tra interno ed esterno. L'intervento di restauro si distingue per le apprezzabili soluzioni conservative degli elementi strutturali, dalla ricucitura e integrazione delle murature in laterizio al recupero degli infissi e delle travi in acciaio che ordiscono la rete delle coperture. Da qui la capacità dell'intervento di valorizzare la grande scala architettonica e la visibilità dei moduli strutturali, ottimizzando le potenzialità luministiche dello spazio libero, con un'innovativa impiantistica sostenibile e le microarchitetture pensate come arredi per rispondere alla molteplicità dei nuovi usi, destinati a continui adattamenti o radicali mutazioni. Come un intervento, avete visto, di restauro del moderno di una fabbrica, quindi siamo nella architettura industriale, diventa, come noi chiediamo sempre, no? Possa avere una seconda vita e una nuova realizzazione. Poi anche la continuità dell'approccio al sisma ci ha visto vicini a valutare questo progetto, perché è un'altra tematica. Durante il terremoto del 2012 i nostri capannoni, no? Abbiamo subito il danno anche sull'intervento dell'impresa, dell'area produttiva. Allora tutto questo è stato oggetto anche di un'analisi tra i giurati. Prego.
In 1926, Henry Ford, the founder of the Ford Motor Company, purchased 105,000 square meters of land on the Richmond, California waterfront to build the largest assembly plant on the west coast of the United States. Here's the Ford Assembly Building today. The location of the 50,000 square meter plant allowed chip delivery of parts to the plant for assembly and the finished cars from the plant to ports in the U.S. and abroad. Henry Ford said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, but he had a better idea. To the right is a little bit of history between Henry Ford and Italy. Henry and Giovanni Agnelli, in 1912, Ford and Fiat launched the first Italian auto plant together. By the time the Richmond Ford plant was built in 1930, Henry Ford had already had a decade of expertise perfecting the company's assembly line. The head of the plant recalled, "We built the building around their layouts rather than building the buildings and then putting the equipment in." This pragmatic approach of designing a building envelope around the assembly line layout well suited Henry Ford's architect, Albert Kahn. Kahn, who claimed architecture is 90% business, 10% art, had over 1,000 commissions from Henry Ford. During World War II, the United States War Board ordered all production of civilian vehicles to cease. Thus, in 1942, the Richmond and other Ford plants began production of Jeeps, planes, and tanks. This is the Ford building's craneway filled with tanks. With men on the war front, women were temporarily welcome to industrial jobs typically denied them. Post-war, most women were replaced by men again, as Ford returned civilian vehicle production in Richmond until 1955, when operations moved to a larger factory, and subsequently the Ford building had unmemorable tenants like book storage until many decades later. In 1989, the 6.9 magnitude Loma Prieta earthquake struck Northern California. I'm sure this kind of devastation is familiar to you in Italy. The Ford, as you can see, sustained enormous damage. And despite the building's historic importance, there were many calls for its demolition as being a cheaper alternative than repairing it. Fortunately, one City of Richmond leader is an architect and fought to save the building and arranged a developer competition. And fortunately, that developer, who is shown here, Eddie Orton, was selected to be the developer, is our client. And Eddie, by the way, is half Roman. The current tenants at the Ford building are very much 21st century uses, including a solar technology company, SunPower, a robotics company, Exobionics, a women's sportswear company, Title IX, and so forth. The components of the building complex are the assembly building, let's see, a long expanse. It has a sawtooth roof. The craneway building at the water's edge. Next to the craneway, the oil house, and a little piece of the building, the boiler house. The next few slides are about the assembly building right here. The assembly building is 2 stories along 1/2 of the length, and this is showing the first floor, just to say the construction was a concrete floor slab which was polished and retained, structural steel which was exposed to the extent possible, and here the interventions consist of a stair that has to be very lightweight and is suspended from above and light. The open floor plan, combined with ribbon fenestration and skylights at the 2nd floor, had been provided by Albert Kahn for Henry Ford's daylit car assembly line. Today, it provides an ideal environment for SunPower workers on the right. Here's the same view of the space empty on the left, and on the right, filled with activity at SunPower. We collaborated with SunPower's CEO on the plan layout and elements such as the stair, which we had just seen, offices, and this series of conference rooms. He and we share the same objectives: modern architecture to work with the historic shell, sustainability, functionality, and comfort. The Ford building, oops, sorry, wrong button. This one. The Ford building is very long. It's 1/3 of a kilometer from end to end. The assembly building sawtooth roof, here and here, provides north light for Albert Kahn's Dalit factory, as mentioned before. And fortunately, he had not anticipated it. The south roof was very helpful for the solar collectors which SunPower installed in the 21st century. SunPower was the perfect tenant to exploit this area for solar collectors. Taking advantage of the building's north-south solar orientation, the modern technology of photovoltaics, this project transforms a relic of fossil fuel-powered auto industry into a showcase for renewable energy technology. And this is SunPower, where they made their conference room tables out of solar collectors. And here they are with one of their prototypes. The contemporary architectural elements which we provided have simple forms and a materials palette of wood, steel, glass, paint, and concrete. And the new architectural elements, including lighting and details, are modern, complementary to the 1930s building shell. Panoramic views across San Francisco Bay are visible from the building. You can see here through layers of glass. San Francisco Bay to the west, Verdant Hills to the east. We endeavored to maximize view through the floor plan layout and through transparent walls. Here is a view of the buildings prior to our work on them and after the earthquake. To the right is the assembly building that we just discussed. Next to it is the boiler house. It's now a restaurant. And beyond that is the Craneway building, which has been turned into an extremely popular event venue. And then here, this smaller building, relatively smaller, was the oil house, which used to store oil that went to the boil house that fueled the factory. And this is now a visitor center. So today, the oil house is transformed into a museum. To the left is the Craneway. The museum is called the Rosie the Riveter Visitor Center that celebrates World War II roles of American women. These Rosies, who are now aged in their 90s, worked in the factories and shipyards, replacing male workers who had joined the military. The U.S. government propaganda poster on the right targeted housewives to take on traditionally male jobs, like riveters. The female icon in this campaign was named Rosie. Rosie the Riveter. When the war was over, the government suggested Rosie return to her kitchen so that men would have jobs. Here is the oil house before we transformed it into the Rosie the Riveter Visitor Center. It was severely damaged by the Loma Prieta earthquake, and then for decades it had sat around and got further deteriorated by the weather. Beyond the structural and seismic upgrades, accessibility improvements, and other building systems, the new architectural elements are of modern design. The most dramatic transformation of the oil house is in the basement. Originally low, dark, and dank, it had been inaccessible except to, oops, wrong button, sorry again. It had been accessible in this space only through a hole in the floor because this space was only to hold oil tanks. Fortunately, at one part of this lower level, there is a deep pit, a deep dark pit you can't see, that held these oil tanks. And we took advantage of that pit to design a film theater. Here's the low part, and it steps up, which gave us very good sight lines. We contrasted the existing concrete beams and walls with the new interventions of wood reclaimed wood on one side, red benches, and this is all black acoustical material on the other sides. The visitor center, previously an oil house, is a few steps away from the boiler house. The boiler house's stack is today lit with color, a symbol of the Ford building's rejuvenation. The boiler house, originally, when we found it, abandoned and unused, had been full of obsolete equipment, making any new use impossible. So we had to clear out everything, except we saved these guys over here and turned the rest of the building into a restaurant. This view of the boiler house shows the impact of lighting, not only on the stack, but the interior lighting, which was not only for the interior function, but also lit up the building like a lantern. The jewel of the project is arguably the craneway. It's set over the water with bay views in multiple directions, as you can see. However, the unreinforced brick of the Ford building sustained devastating damage in the 1989 earthquake, especially at the craneway, as shown on the left. The seismic and architectural rehabilitation has resulted in a new life for the building as a multi-purpose venue of 3,700 square meters. This view of the craneway shows its intimate connection to the waterfront and the boiler house beyond. Here is an historical contrast of the craneway as it has been. On the left, a tank depot in 1942. Today, a 3,000-person symphony concert hall at one of its many events, with, of course, a backdrop of the San Francisco Bay and the city of San Francisco. The craneway hosts a huge variety of events and activities, especially performing arts and sports. This is a Merce Cunningham dance performance. And a very different kind of dance, a ribbon dance, acrobats. In closing, here is the night view from the craneway to the San Francisco Bay Bridge and the city. Thank you.